so much for those remarks, Ambassador Farrell. Ambassador Astuto, to get you in at this point, according to the European Institute for Gender Equality, Europe has been stagnating when it comes to bridging the gender gap, when it comes to women's greater role of women in the workforce, in policy making as well. Where do you think the problem lies? We've seen Scandinavian countries doing very well when it comes to bridging the gender gap. But do you feel the war, the pandemic, the slowdown that we're seeing has all been a setback for the drive for greater women's equality in Europe as well?
Thank you, and let me also echo the words of my colleagues in congratulating the network for this fantastic event, a very fitting celebration in the wake of the 8th of March of International Women's Day. As to this report, well, certainly COVID has not helped. I think we have all noted there has been a stagnation when it comes to the necessary progress in towards gender equality. The illegal, unjustified Russian aggression is also proving devastating, particularly towards the most vulnerable groups. And you've seen the women and the elderly particularly exposed to acts of aggression. As to Europe, I think it's fair to say there is still a lot to do. If you look at reports such as the World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap Report, you have Finland in the second position, and you have another 8 I think EU member states in the first 20 as to the rankings. So I think we have progressed over the years. We have progressed through the joint action of individual member states and the framework set by the European Union, the European Union institution and legislation. As my Australian colleague was saying, legislation is an important piece of the framework, an important element in our toolkit. Then obviously you need to change mentality, you need to address the residual patriarchal mindset which is still there, including in Europe, and which is extremely damaging when it comes to allowing the full set of talents and ambition to be realized in society, be it in economic terms or in political terms. So, in short, I think a considerable progress has been made over the years, over the past decades, but we are not yet there. And I think the words of the Secretary General about 300 years necessary to achieve gender equality should act as a warning and a clarion call for all of us.
Right. Let's ask for some personal anecdotes as well, and whether there are situations which women diplomats actually handle better than male diplomats. Ambassador Jones, if I can put that to you, if you can give us a sense of some of the challenges that you faced in your journey from a young diplomat to ambassador, and do you feel that diplomacy is something that requires sensitivity, it needs tact, it needs a lot of careful thought? Do you think women handle some of these difficult, very tricky diplomatic situations much better?
What I will say is that women handle those situations very well. We have plenty of male colleagues who handle them equally well. One of the things that I think is particular about women, certainly in the group that I grew up with in the Foreign Service, is that we're very good at listening, and we're very good at trying to understand where the other person is coming from, so that when we are trying to suggest a solution to a problem, that we bring in that point of view in order to make the solution more palatable. That's something that my male colleagues do as well, but listening is one element of it. Another is, I find that many times women are much more prepared to wait out the discussion. They aren't the ones who are trying desperately to get their voices heard instantly, and they're not always the ones trying to take over the conversation, as some of my male colleagues do. But I often think that the one who has the last word has the best word, and I think women are particularly good at that. One of the things that I think is very important for me to understand as I came through is not to take personally the slights that came my way, very often people thought I was not a Foreign Service officer, but a staff member. And I would often, and I would just let it go and then come up with whatever the information was that was needed, or the solution that was needed, or so that they could see for themselves that I wasn't somebody to be trifled with, if I can put it that way. One of the things that I think is also very important, it was very important in my career, is that people knew who I was before they knew who my male colleagues were. And that was a big advantage. So all through my career, being a woman, I found often to be the advantage, not the disadvantage.
Right. A big round of applause for Ambassador Jones. Those are beautiful words that women are not over-eager to get their voices heard. They're okay with having the last word, but that is the best word. That's a very strong takeaway there, Ambassador Jones. But Ambassador Farrell, taking a cue from what Ambassador Jones was saying, do you feel that we need to make more enabling policies? Is Australia also trying to do that? That it's easier for women diplomats to speak up, to participate more in policy making, in diplomacy, and geopolitical strategies as well? Do you think more enabling policies are needed, and is Australia doing that?
Absolutely, and our new government, the Albanese government, is reviewing on a whole of government system how we can better include women in our public services. And later this year they'll release a national strategy to achieve gender equality. The US, as you say, leads the field. Australia would like to take that crown, and the new government certainly has that. But look, you know, Parikshit, that I'm not a trained diplomat, I'm a recovering politician, but the fact is that I'm in a diplomatic service where across 130 posts around the world, almost 50% of heads of mission are female. And that's as a result of our second female foreign secretary in a row, our third female foreign minister in a row. So if you put women in charge, you get equality quicker. And I agree with everything that Beth said about what women bring to meetings, to diplomacy, to work. And that's why at my High Commission, which is dominated by women, 65% of my colleagues are women, we ensure that in meetings they are well represented. There are no mammals when we sit down and talk about an issue. There's always women in the room, and we try and get 50% of women in the room because they bring different perspectives. They bring different approaches, and I agree with Beth. At times they're not quite as belligerent or aggressive, or perhaps just ambitious.
Right. Thank you so much, Ambassador. We'll take final remarks from all our panelists now. Ambassador Rahman, if I can begin with you. While, yes, Bangladesh has done very well in Southeast Asia when it comes to women's empowerment, there are challenges. Challenges in the form of sexual violence. How are you tackling that?
Well, I think the first thing which is necessary and which we did is to put in place the right legal framework. So I think what we did is we first enacted the Domestic Violence Prevention and Protection Act 2010, and then which was subsequently in 2013, I believe, the domestic violence rules were adopted commensurating the act. So earlier also the High Court Division of Bangladesh gave a set of directives for action in case of sexual harassment of women in all academic institutions and workplace as well. And then the Child Marriage Restriction Act, you know, it's a huge issue in our country. So the Child Marriage Restraint Act, which provides for strict punishment of marriage of girls below the age of 18, was introduced. Then another act was the Human Trafficking Deterrence and Suppression Act. So these acts, which are compliant with the international standard, stresses on the protection of women, including the women victims of trafficking. Then the government has established 41 tribunals, new tribunals across the country to expedite trials in case filed over for the torture against women and children. Then we have the National Legal